I got written up for saving a woman's life. I used to work for a local burger place. I worked there twice. Once as a manager before leaving for another job, and a second time as just a part-time worker. Both times made me want to rot in the ground because the owner was a total bastard. Like the kind of person who gets in your face over a slight inconvenience. Anyway, the second time I worked there, I was cutting some tomatoes up front waiting for customers. My GM had gone on her hour-long break and it was just me and another employee. An elderly lady had been hanging around, coming up to the counter and ordering a soda, but the problem was she already bought a cup, so she could have just kept refilling it. She was confused. Really confused. She would go back outside and sit on the steps before coming back in and doing the same thing. My coworkers and I were concerned. We all talked with one another and decided to call the local non-emergency line. I told the officers what was going on and they sent a few officers out to check on her. During that time the GM had come back and was wondering what was happening. I told her that I had called, and by the time I left at the end of my shift the police had taken the woman away in an ambulance. I come in the next day and I'm handed a write-up. I'm confused and the GM tells me I should have waited until she returned. I thought it was ridiculous and made a copy but refused to sign it. About a day or two later the lady's family calls. They said if we waited any longer she would have died because she was in diabetic shock. So yeah, I got written up and then I quit. Call your local news station. Tell them the story. Put your old workplace on blast. Thank you for what you did. One time my dad was found wandering around the mall by a security guard. He was young and not elderly looking. He was in diabetic shock. The guard asked him if he had family and the only thing he could remember was my phone number. I never even got to meet the guard to thank him. So I'm thanking you instead. Folded hands. Some things cannot wait. I am sure if the woman died you would never forget it. Your GM is a fool who would let you die. Let alone the woman. A friend of mine administered CPR on a person in the parking lot while working at Albertsons. You guessed it. A write-up because saving someone's life put the company at risk for liability. This country is fucked up. My ex has gone through so many medical problems and I'm happy to say she has not just beaten them. She has conquered them. At one point she was a substitute teacher that specialized with troubled kids and she did well enough to be known for it. One day she fell into an undiagnosed diabetic shock. It looked like she just fell asleep at her desk. The school decided she was drunk and told her to drive home. WTF. She never taught again. But like I said, she conquers. She has moved on to better things and conquered that too. And even being an ex, she is one of the best people I've ever known. You are a wonderful person. That lady and her family are lucky you cared enough to have someone make contact with her. Diabetes is a horrible disease. I'm sorry you worked for such a shit company. They could have turned this into a feel-good story and gave you a great review, evaluation, etc. Instead they were just buttholes. Good on you for quitting. Good luck. Used to work for a supermarket in Australia. Green, if anyone is curious. Got written up for dropping self-service to run across the street and help an elderly lady who had a serious fall. And because I couldn't return afterwards due to the blood on my uniform. They're heartless FKERS. As someone who went through it too, I knew exactly what was wrong. It's a terrifying thing to go through. You feel thirsty all the time so you drink. But you just keep drinking and nothing is helping. Then you get a splitting headache and you can't sleep due to the thirst. You get so scared not knowing what is happening to you. Then you go into a coma. Then you die. I made it to the headache before my family sent me to the hospital. You did the right thing and should speak up. You saved this woman from collapsing or dying at your job. My mom has had issues when her blood sugar is out of whack. We've had to call 911 as well. Good on you for looking out for someone in need. An old colleague of mine at a former workplace got suspended for lending his inhaler to a customer who was having a severe asthma attack because the ambulance was taking too long to arrive. Shocking but not surprising how middle management likes to pull power plays with people's lives. Write this up, motherfucker. What a flaming piece of shit that GM was. I don't understand who you had to wait for. I had a similar situation, but a kid was choking. I called the cops. They gave me a write-up because I left the Amore area. I wrote what happened on the note and signed it out of principle. You saved someone up. That is a genuinely good thing. I second the idea of talking about the shop. But don't blast them on the media. Be casual about it. Something like lol. I wish my manager agreed. I got written up for it and then quit. This is a perfect example of no good deed goes unpunished. Nurse here, good job getting help. FYI, calling 911 for this person would have been totally acceptable. Confusion can be any number of medical emergencies. 911 gets you to a dispatcher faster. Don't mind everyone saying don't call the cops. In most areas it doesn't matter. Dispatch will send closest and most appropriate services. Many times, cops will be on scene first because they're more abundant and trained in basic healthcare knowledge. Until EMS shows up. As a type 1 diabetic, thank you. Thank you so much for being aware of those circumstances. There are instances where we think our sugars will bounce back and we just have to sit and ride through the wave before we can get up and go again. But it can slip really quickly if we're already super out of it and having a medical emergency. You're a lifesaver. Fuck your boss. That's exactly what happens to me when my blood sugar is really low. I usually wake up when that happens and it takes a while to slowly piece together the smallest detail. Eventually I figure out I need sugar. It's pretty scary when it happens. Thank you for saving her life. Bruh. Report this story to your local newspaper. Use real names. Fuck the company that fired you for saving someone's life. Yet another example of Wall Street. The C-suite. Business owners, managers would rather see their customers and employees and the children of their customers and employees dead than accept less profit. Keep this in mind and you will rarely be surprised at what corporate America will do. I had an interaction like that with an older neighbor once. She was nervous and not making a lot of sense. I had no idea what she was normally like, so I went on with my day. She croaked. You and your teammate did the right thing. I can't believe the GM would write you up. You get emergency services to help someone in need. Not to be the hero, which is seems like this person wanted to be. When my blood sugar gets too low, I tend to lose focus and get very confused, but you can't tell just by looking at me. Diabetic shock is real, and if your blood sugars drop too low you can go into a coma. I'm well managed. But sometimes if I'm not cautious about the amount of insulin I take, my sugars drop too low, but usually depend on someone close to me to help me out. Thank you for your concern and helping this lady out. You and your co-workers are absolute heroes to that family. I worked at a truck stop years ago. This lady comes to my counter trying to pay for her drink and tells me a man was just run over by a 18-wheeler on the back lot. I called 911. I can't remember where my manager was at the time. Possibly taking a break. But he got super mad at me for not coming to find him before calling 911.